All right, folks, it's time for our favorite podcast, Cut to the Chase, episode 75. I'm bringing on a superstar for episode. I reserved this spot specifically for this gentleman, Mike Papantonio, aka Pap. How are you doing today?
Good, Greg. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for coming on to the show. We're going to cut to the chase. You know, my mom always said I need a proper introduction, and I got to tell you, it's going to be hard to give you a proper introduction.
Well, that's okay. That's okay.
We're going to talk about, neck, the baby formula. My mother was famous for sayings or whatever. And one of her favorite sayings is, what Lord only knows, what else could go wrong? We got toxic baby food. We got a war going on. We got climate change. We got chemicals in our water that are never going away. Plastics everywhere. So why not baby formula? Why not?
The greatest thing about what you just said is the reason that's happened, Greg, is because we have a dysfunctional corporate media. That's why it seems like it's all happening all at one time. These are the kind of stories that should have been covered a long time ago, and we should have known about them a long time ago. But, I've worked in the media for 22 years as being either a correspondent, MSNBC, Fox News, America's Lawyer. I've done a lot of media. And, when I get to the point where I'm saying, to answer your question, how are we here with all of these things gone wrong? It's because nobody followed it when it was going wrong. And so all of a sudden we wake up one day and we say that we're looking at all these disasters. Well, these disasters have been brewing a long time, Greg, especially NEC. It's pathetic. The reason the media didn't tell this story is because all the folks that made this stuff, they were big advertisers. Nestle, big advertisers. Mead, big advertiser. All these companies spend billions of dollars with their message to corporate media, and the trade-off for corporate media is to say, okay, well, thanks for the money, and oh yeah, we'll pass on doing this story, even though we know that the product that you're making is killing 3,000 babies every year. So it's pathetic. I mean, one reason I started doing America's Lawyer with RT Network of all networks is because I'd do MSNBC and I'd be in the front count, and I'd be down 10, 9, 8, 7. They'd say, Pap, we got to change the story. And I was getting ready to do a story maybe on Merck killing people with a dangerous drug, or Bayer killing somebody with a dangerous drug. And in between the T's, when they said, coming up, Mike Papantonio and Ed Schultz to talk about Merck and the fact that they've made a product that's blinding people. In between the T's and that, the company would call and kill the story. So we don't have media anymore. What you do right now, Greg, matters more than it ever has, because independent media tells stories that corporate media is ordered not to tell because their advertisers won't let them, or because their political involvement, they're too Democrat, they're too Republican, whatever it is, they can't tell the story. So what you do, calling balls and strikes, hopefully, is the new media.
All right. So before we get into the weeds of the baby formula, number one, I was sucking on my mother's breast growing up. I didn't even know that there was things like this that could possibly, obviously there's a need for, some ladies, just can't generate enough, milk when they're, after they give birth, whatever the issue is or whatever. But I do want to take 2 minutes to let the audience know, they might be getting confused. They're hearing you're a superstar on media and all that, but I want people to know a little bit about who you are. Mike is a trial lawyer. Okay. So Mike, senior shareholder, 11 Papantonio, one of the premier plaintiffs law firms in the world since 1955, 150 million verdicts in excess of $1 million. I think the total amount of money that they've won for the ordinary person, not for companies, not for corporations, not for the media, over 30 billion. Did I get that right? $30 billion.
That's right.
All right. Mm-hmm. This guy represents the ordinary person, and the talents are just wide ranging. Not only does he go to court and explain taking these complicated scientific situations, environmental problems, and explaining it to a jury so that they understand how his client and a lot of our clients have been injured. But he also, amazingly, is just more than generous. This man runs a conference twice a year, the best lawyer conference, maybe even the best conference I've ever been to in my entire life. 2 times a year, 1,500 lawyers, marketers, everybody comes together. And you would think that we would all be competitive, stabbing each other in the backs. That's what I thought, okay? But I get there a couple of years ago, to my first time at the Mass Torts Made Perfect, and I was floored. Why was I floored? Because I saw everybody, all the lawyers, all the different law firms coming together, sharing their knowledge, uniting, and going after corporate malfeasance. And the first time I ever heard sociopath and the connection of corporate malfeasance came from this gentleman's mouth. And I've listened to you a lot, Mike. I don't just go there to schmooze and have a good time. I go and I listen to your stuff. Mike, just a couple more things. This is the Jim Cramer of the law. This is the Bill Belichick. This is Anthony Robbins. This is who you're listening to. You might not realize it because, like Michael says, the media just, they don't care. They put aside all these public interest issues, and like, it's no big deal. But this gentleman here brings it to the forefront. And that, on top of that, he's on TV, he's hosting a show, he's hosting a radio syndicate. And I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you have all the time. I'm just about done. He's written a couple books because, through these stories or whatever, to try to get the public to understand really what's going on, is he just basically creates a fictional story about these real life stories. And some of his books, Inhuman Trafficking, if you haven't read it, Law and Disorder, great stories. Anyway, all right, now let's go. And I want you.
Well, Greg, thank you for that invitation. It's I don't know that I deserve all that, but I will tell you this much. You and I collectively have got a big responsibility. And I remember, Greg, I don't know whether you were there, but I remember maybe could have been 20 years ago when we first started Mass Torts Made Perfect. I said to everybody in that room, there were about that point, there were about 1,000 people sitting in the room. And I said, the most effective thing you can do is figure out how to get your story out, because every story is local, and those local stories, they all converge. And then once they converge, you have change. And one way to get the stories out is for all of us, everybody in this business, whether you're a lawyer, whether you work with lawyers and help them make their practice better, is to do what you're doing here right now. Because ultimately, that's where everybody's going for their information. That's where everybody's learning the true inside story about what happens on Wall Street, what happens on Madison Avenue. How do these folks get away with what they get away from? And so the point is I hope that if anybody's listening to this, that they're going to kind of emulate what you're doing. I mean, because what you're doing is the new delivery system for information, especially for lawyers.
Thank you very much, Mike. And I hope, that it does do as you say. So just so the audience knows, I'm going to be, this is going to go on the YouTube channel. I got to tell you, if you want to listen to two good looking guys, you go on my YouTube channel and you're going to watch this show, and you're going to be, it's hard to pay attention to all it because we're so good looking. But also, if you're driving in the car, you want to listen to the show, you go to my audio podcast. But you have to go to my audio podcast because I'm going to drop a lot of the information. Mike's bio, Levin, Papantonio, who they are, or whatever. And, the science behind what's going on here, the problem here. So you're going to, if a lot of this is like over your head, or you can't figure out, process it, or you're looking at us and we're so good looking, you can't focus, don't worry. You go back to the radio show and you'll see the notes and you'll get educated. All right. So Mike, how does the story start? How do you get involved? How do you find out?
Yeah. Okay. First of all, the story's been out there about 50 years. And as I said, here's what we knew 50 years ago. We knew that mother's donor milk was absolutely vital to the health of children. We knew that there was a whole era, and it started 40 or 50 years ago, where we started thinking about how important it would be to have mothers' donor banks, where you could have mothers that couldn't produce milk, they could go to a donor bank, they could have human milk. And when they did that, Greg, everybody understood what the numbers looked like. They understood that when a child, especially a preemie, is fed donor's milk, mother's milk, rather than cow milk, that the numbers on how they performed intellectually as they got older, how they fought disease, how their overall health and well-being was. There was no comparison. There was plenty of material even that long ago to show we don't want to give children cow's milk, especially preemies, for a whole host of reasons. Here's what else they knew, and they knew this within easily a 40-year period. They knew that the cow's milk had a unique enzyme reaction to the preemie baby's body. And what it would do is it would cause the inside of the child, it would cause the gastrointestinal system to shut down, and it would become necrotic. It would become so necrotic that these preemies, even if they lived through the first part of the suffering, where the pain was horrendous, they had to keep the children completely, basically under narcotics because the pain was so bad. I saw a story not long ago where a nurse said, I had to get out of working with NEC preemie babies because I couldn't stand the screaming. I couldn't stand the horror that these children were suffering from. Well, let me tell you something. Nestle knew that. And Nestle has known that for decades. And Nestle decided that they're going to build an industry around it anyway. And so what they were going to do is they were going to minimize and attack and almost marginalize the importance of breastfeeding. So they started a campaign to attack breastfeeding. They were going to shut down the possibilities for the expansion of mothers' donor milk facilities, and they set out to do that. This firm, we launched the tobacco industry in this country. Fred Levin, my partner, actually wrote the legislation that everybody attached their name to, and it changed the way that tobacco was sold in this country. We've handled 40 of the largest pharmaceutical cases in America. And we're just finishing up with the first round of the opioid industry. And here's what we've learned in all that, okay? We've learned that some of these companies have used a template. I can take the template that was used in tobacco, superimpose it on the template that was used for opioids, and the template that has been used for the cow's milk industry. When I say template, what the template is how do we go about killing people and getting away with it and making money? That sounds like a bold statement, but every one of those industries, whether it's tobacco, whether it's this baby formula industry, or whether it's the opioid industry, we saw document after document that surfaces where that says, we know we're putting these people at risk. We know people are going to die, but golly, we got to consider our margins. We have responsibility to shareholders. And because of that, 3,000 children, preemies, will die this year from the use of cow's milk. And so this is one of those cases you've heard me talk about, Greg, is that it's a legacy case. This is a pure legacy case. When you're handling a case like this, you're saying, on your look back in your career, when your grandchild asks you, Dad, Granddaddy, what did you do? Grandma, what did you do as a lawyer? Well, I mean, it's one thing to say I handled 10,000 auto cases. It's another thing to say, I got this product off the market. I went after 40 pharmaceutical companies and stopped them from doing what they were doing. I went after 12 corporations that were destroying our ecosystems, and I put them out of business if I had to. I did these things on behalf of all of America. This is one of those cases. And if I were to say, where does it fall as far as importance? If I were to say tobacco, opioids, I would put this case, this NEC case, this cow's milk, garbage, toxic trash that they're selling, I would put it right up there with those other two cases. It's that important. And they have used exactly the sociopath template that those other two companies use, the tobacco industry and the opioid industry. These are bad players. I think by the time it's over, we ought to be looking at a perp walk, not did we take their money away from them.
All right. So where is the FDA in this whole equation?
Yeah, the FDA, it's an awful thing. In America, we think that we have a regulatory agency that's looking out for us. In this particular case, as in most of these pharmaceutical kind of cases, what ends up happening is the corporate entity takes control of the regulatory entity. And what ends up happening is the regulator, who's supposed to be deciding what's the best protection for consumers, that person is making $150,000, and the company comes to them and says, hey, you know what, Mary? After you finish up here, we'd like to talk to you about coming to work with us. And oh, by the way, we think we can pay you $500,000 to $1 million. So they end up leaving the agency and they go to work for the corporation. The reverse of that is also true, Greg. The corporate mentality has become so sophisticated, but they understand that the CEO that might have been a CEO of Nestle or one of these cow's milk company, that CEO goes to work in some high secretarial appointment for the regulatory agency, the FDA or the DEA or the SEC. So it's both. You're getting it both ways. So we don't have any regulatory. The FDA is the most dysfunctional group of boneheads. And in the last 25 years, it's been evolving to get worse and worse every presidency. If you think there's a difference in a Democratic president or a Republican president and how they administer, how they protect consumers, you're dead wrong. The only difference is you may find Democrats are better than Republicans on social issues, but where it comes to consumer issues, kitchen table talk issues, money issues, the Democrats are as bad, sometimes even worse than Republicans. So get that out of your head that, I'm singly focused on that one issue.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, I did read an interesting article this weekend from Politico that suggested that they break up the FDA, separate the food and the drug. And, listen, I'm just hoping that they do some good. But back to the baby formula. Let's go through the who, what, why, where, when, and how. Who is making this baby formula? Is there more? Is it?
Well, you've got several companies that I focus on Mead. I focus on right now. My focus is on Mead and Nestle. There's several other companies, but here's the interesting thing about that question. Okay, most of the time we see corporations that are competing with corporations that do the same thing. They're competing for business. They're competing for market share. Nestle is saying, I want to beat out Mead on market share. I want to sell more cow's milk than Mead does. Here, it's a little different. It's as if there's been a pact. And the pact is we're all in this together, and we're collectively going to take all of our money as an industry, and we're going to push back. We're going to push back public interest groups that come after us. We're going to push back politicians that come after us. We're going to make sure they don't win again. We're going to push back university professors who talk bad about us. We're going to make them lose their job. We're going to push back with doctors working in hospitals that are telling the truth about how damn dangerous this stuff is. We're going to make them lose their job. So collectively, you have the industry working hand in hand. It's not as if you got Mead doing this and Nestle doing that. It's all for one and one for all. Matter of fact, we're probably going to, before it's all over, we're probably going to probably find some pretty specific price fixing. It's this, the difference is almost non-recognizable in how these folks do business. So it's an industry versus consumer. And unfortunately here you have industry plus regulator plus politician plus media versus consumer. So we are literally the line in the sand here.
The line in the sand. Thank God for that, because I gotta say, is the product still being used? Or
oh yeah, it's an all-time high. They look, the market is increasing geometrically, okay, and has been for the last 10 years. I mean, the increase is almost geometric. And so what they do is they're already moving on. They're expecting some pushback in the legal front right now, and we already see them moving in, emphasizing third world countries. Africa is a blight. It's a blight with this product, and they've convinced the African government that to make it mandatory that they use cow's milk. They've done this in South America. This is an industry that is, they've mastered the art of maneuvering politics. They're very, very good at it. And so the big thing we're going to be confronted with is, first of all, to recognize that this is the same Nestle company. You know, this company has a long history of awful things, bad things, like where they go to third world countries and they try to steal the aquifer so they can bottle the water and sell the American public. Or when they're caught with Malaysian fishermen that are literally being held prisoner to work for the industry. They have had so many human rights violations. You and I don't even have time in this element to cover all the human rights violations this company has. They are predators. Go to Mead, no different. Go to Abbott. Abbott, the same thing. Abbott, if you take a look at the number of times they've been hit, punished for bribery in foreign countries where they're bribing people to do improper thing, where for antitrust issues, take a look at these folks. Google these folks. Google Abbott. Google Nestle. You're going to be appalled at the fact that they're still doing business in this country. And not one time has anybody said, in all these bad things you've done, that somebody's got to go to prison for it. You see?
Well, that's the line in the sand too. And when, I grew up, Nestle, I thought that was as wholesome as you could get.
Oh God.
I mean,
yeah,
for
most
me,
people do. Yeah.
You get to this point in life and you're just like scratching your head. All right. So it sounds like this is a global issue. It's not just.
Oh, it is. It is. Let me tell you, this case reminds me. I remember when I first started practicing law, I was confronted with a case that was called Factor 8. I was a young lawyer, and my whole goal was to get the product shut down in the United States. It was a product that hemophiliacs were taking to stop bleeding. And the industry knew that the product that they were selling was infected with AIDS virus. So after we caught them here, and after they had to take that product off the market, they didn't destroy the product. They took their inventory and shipped it to South America, and thousands of people died there from AIDS. They shipped it to Asia, and thousands of hemophiliacs died of AIDS. So this is the industrial mentality. This is corporate mentality. And the difficulty is sometimes, even when you're picking a jury, is to overcome in the jury's mind that surely a corporation wouldn't, their conduct would not be that bad. You have to literally overcome that to where they're trying to wall that possibility off. It's too hard for them to look at. I can't imagine this is how corporations work in the United States or anywhere in the world. So you have to overcome that. That's going to be an issue here, because what are we talking? We're talking about, baby's milk. Well, it's a toxic poison that we're giving to preemie babies, and it's so bad that it's causing the gastrointestinal system of their body to completely turn to dust. When they look at the intestinal system of these children, it's almost like dust in parts of their where it's just completely dried out the entire gastrointestinal system. If the child lives, they've got physical problems that are so daunting. They've got mental issues. They've got brain damage. They have neuropathies that are paralyzing kind of neuropathies. They've got neurological issues that are overwhelming, even if they live. And so, look, somebody listening to this broadcast, if they have a license and they don't understand that, that license is so valuable, but it's only valuable if I do something meaningful with it. It's only valuable if I go after these son of a bitches and make sure that they're held accountable. That's what a license is for. And is it easier to say, well, I'd rather do workers' comp and auto cases? Well, God bless you. Somebody has to do that. But that doesn't mean you can't do both. You can't be part of this program, part of the solution here. And so I really feel like every program you hear me tell 2,000 people, I say, look, guys, gals, this is what's on your front. You can either choose to do it, or you can go home every day and practice just like the person down the street, handle auto cases, handle comp, handle the same old stuff. Or you can say, I want to be different. I want my license to mean something. And you can take on these folks, and we'll be right there by your side. We're always right there by your side handling these cases. We're going to be taking the depositions. We're going to be trying the cases. We're going to be doing like we do on every case from top to bottom. And I'm inviting people to please come work with us on it.
Yeah. So basically, listen, if you're an attorney, the audience here is very wide. Attorneys, maybe just ordinary folks, maybe mothers who have a newborn baby and with all these horrible problems and trying to figure out what's going on. And
Mm.
so maybe you're just doing regular, you've been an attorney for 30 years. All you know how to do is workers' comp. And, you're getting tired of it and you want to do something different. Call Pap. He will show you how to get involved, how to get cases, how
As
to work.
much or little as they want to do, man. I mean, if they want to come in and they just want to get cases, but they want to be there in trial, great. If they want to help us take the depositions, if they want, whatever they want to do. This requires unity. You opened this program just a little while ago when you talked about that unity. The unity matters. The unity is why we just were able to settle the first part of the opioid case against the distributors. Where in my law firm did probably 90% of the depositions there. But we had other people from around the country that, they'd show up at the deposition, they'd give us information, they'd be helpful. And we were able to settle that for $26 billion. Does that mean it's over? No, there's two more parts to it. This case that we're talking about, the NEC case, it's a long game, man. It's not going to be over tomorrow. It's going to be a long, hard fight. And we have to do the best we can in a unified way. But to do that, here's one thing that you may not know about lawyers. I know about it because I've written several books about lawyers. And what I mean is the first book I ever wrote was called In Search of Atticus Finch. The other one was called Resurrecting Aesop. They were two books where I had to understand what makes lawyers tick, because that's what it was about. How do you stay motivated in this business? How do you excel in this business? How do you avoid burnout in this business? What are the things that matter most in this business to help you become a good lawyer? I had to understand all that. So I sent out 1,000+ questionnaires all over the country. And the response was remarkable. The questionnaires kept coming in. I gave those questionnaires to some couple of shrinks who are very, very good at personal analysis, character analysis. And they told me something startling. You know what it is about lawyers? This will surprise you, that lawyers are terrified of rejection and failure. Now, that sounds contrary to everything we believe, because most lawyers come out of law school. If they don't go to work for some cushy defense firm where they're paid, $200,000 and then they disappear, nobody ever knows who the hell they are the rest of their lives, but they choose to go out and hang a shingle. That takes courage to do that. But behind that shingle is that thing that it's always been in the back of my head. The thing what these shrinks told me, it is that lawyers, from basically what we saw in the questionnaires, are kind of terrified of rejection and change and failure. So that's what we have to overcome. And that's what you should overcome as a lawyer if you're thinking about doing this. Look, it improves your quality of life. When you're doing something that really matters, that 10 years later, you can look back and say, I had one important, I changed things for the better. I saved 3,000 kids a year from preemie deaths. I did something that matters. That's going to mean something to you. And so every now and then you got to step out, and you have to be willing to take that chance and say, yeah, I might fail. This may not work, but you have to take the chance and you have to step out and try it.
All right. So I'm going to play devil's advocate because that's my favorite role in life.
Uh-huh.
How do you know that this baby formula is causing all this havoc? Is there?
Well, there's science. Yeah. There's science is already good on this. That's very rare. It's very rare for us to step into a case where we already have pretty good epidemiology, where we already got pretty good science, where we've understood the function of these cow enzymes. And even though we can't tell you, and I don't think anybody can tell you the exact mechanism of why this happens, we know that whatever it is in those cow enzymes that babies are taking as preemies, we know that synergistic effect is causing NEC. So that's already out there. Do we have to tie it up some? Yeah, we're going to have to do some work. But what case have we ever had where we haven't had to do that? That's why we choose to do it. We're lawyers, we have to build our case. But I'm very comfortable with where we are on the science, to answer your question.
All right. So let's just walk through. Let's get back to the basics here. when is this baby formula being used? Where is it being used? To who, how is this?
The baby formula is used for preemies. All right. And there's a socioeconomic issue here too. You're always going to see them using the cow's milk formula, the preemie formula, for people that are on Medicaid, Medicare, that low income, because it's cheaper. They have better access to it rather than going to a mother's donor facility and using human milk. This is easy. Let's just get it through the door, get them in, get them out. That's the whole corporate hospital mentality now. All right. So how does the companies use that in a very positive way for the company? They say, not only do we want you using this milk while you're here at the hospital with this preemie, we want you to use it when you go home. As a matter of fact, that's where they start building brand loyalty. And the way it happens in a hospital is you'll have detailers show up at a hospital. Detailers is a little woman with cupcakes, and she goes hospital to hospital, doctor to doctor. Doc, would you like to eat a cupcake with me? Can I take you to lunch? It's just sales. It's just sales garbage. So the person who buys for that hospital is a target for these detailers, right? The detailer shows up, and that person is the person who's the acquisition person for maybe 3 or 4 hospitals. So they buy volume, they buy big amounts from one company. It may be Nestle, it may be Abbott, but they buy these big volumes. And so it's in the system. So the nurse is then used to using it. It's like a brand name thing. It's a brand loyalty. She gets used to using this. And so she doesn't know the problems. There's no warning about NEC. There's no warning about any of this stuff on any of the labels. There's no mention of it. It'll tell you all the, how to microwave it and how to stir it and every kind of detail you want, except it doesn't mention all of this material that has been out there very, very clearly for decades, that this baby formula that you're getting ready to give to this preemie will cause NEC, and it will completely cause necrosis throughout their entire gastro system.
All right. So I think that is an enormous amount of information for the audience right now. I appreciate you coming on. I just want to say this. When is the next Mass Torts Made Perfect conference going to be in Vegas? Are we talking September, October?
It's October. Yeah, it's October.
I'm just, I just opened up my calendar. I'm old school. I know people are on their phone or whatever, but I got the hard copy right here.
Yeah.
So listen,
I hope to see you out there, Greg.
If you're a lawyer, if you are a mother that is using this baby formula and your child is having all these bizarre gastro issues, if you have any injury related to a product, my call to action is call Pap.
That's nice of you,
help
Greg.
you out. All right. The last part of this show, I want to just, because I know I rushed through my whole little introduction. My mom says, if you do not give a proper introduction, do not do a show. And sometimes I just want to cut to the chase, but I want to fill the 3 things I forgot. When you were talking about, hey, you don't just take the traditional easy cases, make money and go to your nice little home up north or whatever. You are a crusader. That's the word that I forgot. All right. That's the way. And when I think of Mike, passionate and crusader, and the other 2 things I want everybody to know is, from what I heard, you are still a phenomenal athlete. And
I give it a best shot. Give it my best shot these days.
So I want to see that at some point. And I have been to your office and I saw your guitar, and the second to last Mass Torts Made Perfect gala, I said to you, and I'm going to say it to you again, I think that we should bring the guitar. Let's do a little open mic.
We could do it. I'll bring my saxophone. That's my main instrument, saxophone, jazz saxophone. Yeah,
that's beautiful.
So I hope to see you out there, Greg, and I appreciate this interview. Like I said, what you do matters, because these words don't get out there any other way. All
right, folks, that's it for the 75th episode. Cut to the chase. I know everybody out there has listened to every single one, including his partner, Peter Mauger's beautiful podcast on the opioid crisis, and Kimberly Adams, who we just came on and talked about all the problems with sex trafficking and the porn industry or whatever. So I appreciate your whole law firm coming on. And, I've got a couple of other partners I got to bring them in. Well, I'll get it done. All right. I promise you that.
Right, right. Thanks, Greg. I appreciate the opportunity. Okay.
All right. Take care, Mike.
Bye-bye.